Hi guys, welcome back to Flower Class with Helen Olivia. My name is Madison and I'm going to be teaching today's workshop. We have a beautiful spring bucket today that's in shades of raspberry, lavender, purple, and blue. So our key or star flower for today's class is Delphinium. So we have two different varieties of Delphinium that we are working with, and I will show you guys how to incorporate them into a design. So they are quite a large flower and they look almost like they might be like aggressive in an arrangement. So there's definitely some tips and tricks that you can do in order to pare them down so that they're scaled right to your arrangement. So Delphinium is one of my absolute favorite flowers. As far as flowers go, blue is one of the rarest flowers out there, or flower colors out there. So generally speaking, there are not many blue flowers that kind of grow that way naturally. So there's probably maybe like 5 or 6. So that makes Delphinium very special. And I just love kind of the interesting linear quality of how it grows. So I think it's a really fun and unique flower that we're going to be using today. So our specialty vase for today is kind of like a lavendery purple glass with some kind of geometric texture to it. So this is going to be a really pretty vase. I think this vase, if you repurposed it, would be beautiful for like all tulips would be nice. You could do a beautiful mixed arrangement. But I like how it's colored glass, but it's a little bit more subtle. So excited. I think this is going to beautifully complement a lot of the colors that we are using in class today. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do is kind of discuss the tools that we're using in class today. Inside of your bag, that came along with your flowers, you will find a copy of our formula sheet. So this basically will allow you to follow along with me as I'm naming flowers. You can kind of see general number of individual blooms that we have. So you can really see the types of flowers that are going into this arrangement, and then as well as the ratio of flowers. And then we are also going to be using a piece of chicken wire. So we have a pretty substantial piece in our bucket today. I'm actually going to cut mine in half, and I'm just honestly going to use my clippers. But if you don't want to use your clippers, feel free to grab a pair of wire cutters. This is really thin and easy to cut, so don't feel like you have to use wire cutters for that. And as far as tools go in class, I'm going to be using a pair of clippers and then also a floral knife. So I started with clippers when I was first designing, and then as I got dipped my toes in a little bit deeper, I started using a floral knife because it's just a little bit quicker to design with. So I toggle back and forth between using both tools when I design in the shop. And generally, I will use clippers for really thick, hardy stems, and a knife for things that have a softer stem. So with that said, you can absolutely just use one or the other. So you could design fully with a knife or design fully with a clipper. But if you don't have clippers at home, a sharp kitchen knife, as long as it's not serrated, is a great tool for cutting flowers as well. The only thing that we're going to want to avoid as far as cutting our flower stems, always want to avoid using scissors. They actually siphon off the bottom of the stem. So when you cut them, they just aren't sharp enough to really give it a clean, open vein for the flower to hydrate from. So whether it be even the sharpest scissors that you would use for sewing, even the sharpest craft scissors, none of them are good for your flower stems. So avoid those altogether. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I mentioned earlier we're going to use just a portion of our chicken wire. So I'm going to begin by cutting my chicken wire in half. So just kind of cutting up, and I'm really doing a general measurement here. So about half of this. The rest of this, stick it under your kitchen sink, a drawer in your kitchen. This is a great tool to have on hand if you ever pick up flowers from the grocery store or the farmer's market. Using some chicken wire will really help to elevate your design. It's going to give you a little bit more control, and you will see that demonstrated in class today. But rather than throwing this away, I would just store it somewhere and keep it for a rainy day when you bring some flowers home. All right, so our piece that we are using, I'm going to begin by just folding the piece top to bottom and then folding the two sides in. So in doing so, I just created like a dome shape, and it's really a sloppy kind of messy dome. Just trying to get it to be a good size that I can then put it into my vase. So step number 2, I'm going to slide my wire into my vase and then just push down so that it's fully submerged. And if I look at this from above, from a bird's eye view, you'll see that we've created lots of little nooks and crannies that we can go ahead and add our flower stems into, and it's going to support them. It's going to keep them in place. It's going to keep things from shifting and moving as you start to add more flowers in. So you can be really intentional with your design and making sure that, or this will just give you some really beautiful structure in our arrangement. So with that said, you do not need to concentrate on getting certain stems into certain holes. You can just ignore the grid entirely and it's going to do its job all on its own. So just pretend like it's not in there, and you'll see that it really, it gives you a little bit of bulk in your vase. You're gonna find that things aren't just kind of flopping over or falling out of the vase, which is great, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to pull out of my bucket today, I think we're gonna begin by putting in our mini green hydrangea. So we should have 3 of them in our bucket. So mini green hydrangea is just a baby full-size hydrangea. So the farmers cut it early because it's this beautiful color. It's nice and compact, which means that the flower is going to be really hardy and long-lasting. So lots of wonderful things about it, but it's also great in design to help kind of block your arrangement out. They have a pretty large face to them, so you can really get a nice kind of bed of product laid down, and then you can lay some more beautiful product on top of that. So we're going to begin by just removing this little protective baggie, and I do that by just pulling down on this little sleeve here. You'll see that you have this really pretty kind of citrus green base of the flower, and then a lot of really densely packed, nice looking leaves. So whenever possible, I will leave on as many leaves as I think will kind of enhance the beauty of the arrangement without overwhelming it. So for me, that's usually 3 to 4 leaves around the face of the flower, so long as they kind of frame the face of the flower out nicely. So you can see these ones up top really beautifully kind of hug the face of the flower. And then anything below that, we're just going to strip away. So 3 or 4 up top, framing it out nicely, and then pulling away any other leaves that are below that. And if you do have a leaf on kind of really close up to the top of your flower that is maybe bruised or is torn, you can absolutely remove that. You could go ahead and remove all the leaves if you wanted to. I think it adds some really nice contrast to the green of the flower, and it's also going to add some depth in your arrangement. All right, so let's go ahead and add our mini green in. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 kind of around the rim of my vase. So in order to decide how long we want to keep our stems, I use this pretty much the same measuring technique I'll use throughout class. So we'll demonstrate it for the first couple, and then after that, you'll see I'm just kind of doing it as I go. So the way that we will measure our stem is I generally will kind of hold my stem up near the base where I might like it to be in my design. So I mentioned I kind of want it just kind of sitting on the top side of my vase. So you'll notice that this green part of the flower is really hugging the side of the vase nicely. It's not all the way out here. There's no gap where I can kind of see stem. So really nicely sitting on the side of the vase. And then I can take my clippers or whatever tool you're using, and then you can cut the stem where it looks like it's going to hit the bottom of the vase. So usually that technique will work, and I usually just give it an extra 1/2 inch to 1 inch of a snip because I find it's just a little bit too long using that technique. And then we're going to go in at an angle, and you'll see that your flower will just kind of really nicely hang on the side of your vase here. And again, not falling out of the vase because we have that nice grid in there offering some support. All right, so I have 1 over here. I'm going to get 2 and 3. So number 2, I'm going to, same technique, just kind of holding it up where I might like it to be in my vase, giving the stem a nice snip. And then we'll go in on this side, like so. So almost like two kind of headphones right now, and then spinning my arrangement around, I have a big open area back here, and that is where I'm going to put my last hydrangea. There we go. So I just have 1, 2, 3 hydrangeas kind of around the outside of my vase. And I think that this vase is really fun because of the pattern, it like really picks up the light really beautifully. So you can kind of see as I'm spinning it, it's almost like a cut crystal. So very fond of this guy. All right, so next up, I'm going to take out my umbrella fern. So your umbrella fern looks like this. So a really fun type of fern. We love using this in our designs because it can be kind of sprawling out of your arrangement. It's going to give you some nice texture, and it's just really beautiful. So I'm going to begin by just breaking this in half. So usually there's like a nice kind of split somewhere, or somewhere where you'll see that there's kind of a logical place where you could separate it. So in my case, you can see it's almost like little wings. And then I'm just going to break off one side. So one side will be left with a stem, and then the other side is just going to be like a little fan here. And then I can pinch this guy up, and I'm just going to strip away probably the bottom 2 inches of leaves, and then picking any cavity between my mini green hydrangea, I'm going to get one in kind of right between the two. So just like a pretty little spray out of the bottom. And then my second piece of fern, I want to be kind of spraying out the top of my arrangement, but I'm going to wait till we've got a little bit more in there. So I'm just going to put this guy off to the side. But when I break up my fern, it's going to look really nice if I have kind of an asymmetrical spray coming out this way to create some balance, having a piece that's a little bit lower on the opposite side. So I kind of set that up here before I started kind of getting a bunch of floral over here, and then we'll tuck this guy in as an asymmetrical spray in that direction when we have a little bit more product in our arrangement. All right, so next up, I'm going to work with our roses. So today we are using a blueberry rose. So it's really pretty kind of raspberry colored. Interesting that it's called a blueberry and I'm describing the color as raspberry, but yes. So this is like a purpley, pinky color. Almost looks like the inside of a blueberry, I guess, if you eat a blueberry. All right, so we should have 6 of them. So we'll go ahead and pull out all 6. So we could do this one of 2 ways. You could either do 2 clusters of 3, which is a general rule of thumb that I like to follow if you have a ton of a certain item in an arrangement. Generally, it looks really nice to see groupings of 3 represented in your design, and that's because things tend to grow in nature in groupings of 3. So we could do a grouping of 3 and then another grouping of 3, or we could do 2, 2, and 2 spread throughout the design. So I think that's totally a preference thing in this scenario. You could go either way, but I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to do 2 groupings of 3, and I'll show you guys where I'm going to place those 2. So I have my fern kind of spraying out on this side. So I'm going to do a pocket of roses up here on this side, and then another pocket of roses a little bit lower on this side. So let me just see here. Okay, so a lot going on here. It's going to be a really beautiful arrangement. All right, so I'm thinking we're going to kind of make this more like 3-sided. So there'll be one side of the arrangement that's just like a little bit more impactful than the rest. So that's going to be kind of my floor plan for this arrangement. But I'll be very clear as I'm placing things to make sure that you guys are following along. So generally, when I'm trying to decide how tall I want my arrangement to be, usually I will measure my vase. So I'm just taking my thumb and pinky finger, measuring my vase, and then that's generally how tall I want my actual arrangement to be. So I can use that same measurement and then kind of put that on top of my arrangement. So we'd shoot to have our peak of our arrangement up here. So that's going to be the height I'm going to decide for my top tier of roses. So I can hold my rose kind of up to that height, using the same technique, I can snip my stem where it looks like it's going to hit the bottom of the vase. And then I'm going to go in pretty high in my design. So you'll notice I'm not going straight up and down. I'm going to caulk off to one side. So I'm caulking away from that spray of fern over here. So I've got one here, and then I'm going to turn so you guys can see, do 2 and 3, kind of a little bit below that. So same way I can do that, I can just hold my rose up where I might like it to be, give the stem a nice snip, and then I can pop rose number 2 there. And then number 3 will go kind of alongside those first 2. So it's going to look like there's kind of a big separation between our mini green and our roses, but we've got so much product, it's going to really fill out really nicely. So I've got one kind of cluster up top, and then I'm going to counter that by doing another cluster a little bit lower opposite that. So you'll see I'm just kind of stripping away the leaves as I go in. There's no thorns on this variety, so that's great. So my first rose in this grouping is going to be lower, so it's going to be about halfway down. So right about here, and slide this guy in, and then I'm going to do 2 and 3 in that grouping. There we go. All right, so I mentioned that we're going to kind of do an asymmetrical, or sorry, we're going to have one side be a little bit more exciting than the other. So I want to kind of frame these flower clusters out, and I'm going to do that with my hosta leaves. So your hosta leaves are these big, beautiful kind of teardrop shaped leaves, and you should have 3 of them in your bucket. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to do like 2 behind this top pocket, and then 1 that's kind of spraying out on this side behind that other one. So I really do want these to kind of be like a nice little backdrop, and I know that some of my other flowers are going to be a lot taller, so I am going to have them taller than my roses, so you can definitely see them. And I'm just going to kind of pop them in back here. And these guys have a really thick stem, so just be patient as you're trying to work them in. So I've got 1 there, and I'm going to do number 2 kind of staggered behind the first. So number 2. So kind of like a nice little backdrop there. And then this other one, I'm going to kind of counter that by going, maybe I'll go underneath my cluster of roses. So I can kind of use this to cup underneath this cluster over here. And here we go. Okay. That's all looking really nice. I think I want to go ahead and incorporate my umbrella fern in. So I'm going to put my umbrella fern kind of spraying out up here. So I'm going to turn just so that I can see what I'm doing. But this umbrella fern, I'm just going to kind of pop in behind that cluster of roses, kind of just spraying out up top. So I am just having him kind of spraying out behind those roses, giving us a nice little flare there. And honestly, if you feel like your other little piece of fern is getting lost, you can reposition it. So I'm going to move mine forward a little bit so that it has more of like a spray out there. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we're actually going to start working with our focal flower. So we have 2 different varieties today. We have this beautiful lavender hybrid Delphinium, which is coming from Holland. And then we have our traditional blue in a few different tones. So the hybrid is what we're going to work with first. So I'm actually going to begin by, when I say cutting in half, I'm treating my stem as though it is just this floral part here. So I'm not going to So I guess maybe I am cutting in half, but I'm gonna cut about halfway down where this purple is. So right about here. So I'm cutting this into 2 pieces, and then I'm going to strip anything probably about 4 or 5 inches of floral up here, and then we want a nice clean stem to then go ahead and get into our base. So I've got that guy there, and then about 4 inches of floral on this one. This guy I could probably honestly cut into 3 pieces. So I can go 1, and then cut this in half. And I've got another little guy. And maybe I'll leave one of my stems a little bit longer. So maybe some of them have a little bit more floral, maybe like 5 or 6 inches of floral. So I'm going to just start with 2 because I don't even know that we will need our 3rd, but we can revisit if we decide we want to. So I'm thinking about getting 1 and 2 of these pretty Delphinium kind of drifting out up here, give us a little color there. So I'm taking my more substantial piece and I'm just going to go ahead and slide it in back here behind our fern. And then I can do one of my other smaller pieces. I'm just going to turn so I can see what I'm doing. Kind of fanning below that, and I will turn so you guys can see. So I have 1 and then 1 a little bit lower. I'm then going to fill out some of this back gap with another piece. So you can take one of your other pieces and get some in back here. Give you some pretty purple. I probably have enough that I could then go behind on this side too. So we've got lots of Delph today. So I went 1 back there, and then maybe I'll get another one kind of on this side over here. So for me, I'm just going to kind of pop that down near my lower cluster up front. So a little purple peeking out over here. And again, I think I'm going to leave this last piece behind, and then we'll see if we need it. We just can cut those into so many pieces that honestly, it spreads so nicely throughout the arrangement. You could put this into like cut it up and put it into a bud vase, or even just like a jar. If you have a pretty jar, you could cut this up into 3 pieces and put it into a jar. That'd be so pretty. Okay, so next up, I'm going to work with this light blue. So this is more of like a dainty, smaller variety. So I will usually give myself, again, those 4 inches of buds and then strip anything way below that. And usually with these smaller pieces or the more delicate pieces, you just will use it as 1 stem. So I kind of want to get a little bit of blue over here. So I'm going to put another blue in this cluster along with my purple Delphinium. I'm going to take this second blue guy and go in the back of my arrangement. So giving the back some love, popping another piece of blue in the back. And then number 3, I'm going to have probably spraying out on this side of the design, but I'm probably not going to keep it quite as tight as that purple one. So you can kind of let this really drift out of your design. Beautiful. And I'm going to tweak my leaf because I think I broke it. I'm just going to really quickly tweak it so that it has a little bit more support. There we go. And now we're going to work with our dark blue. So same as before, these will generally just kind of be a 1 piece. So you can pop up anything besides that top bit of floral, so top probably 4 inches of blooms. And then I'm going to get 1 piece over here. I think I'll probably get another bit kind of coming out up front here. So you can take your second piece of this blue. I'm just going to turn so I can see what I'm doing. So for this one, I kind of had it coming out up front near those front flowers. And then I'm going to get my last piece of blue peeking out of the back of my design. And honestly, the back is looking really full and beautiful, so I don't even think you need to consider it a back, but this side up front just has more of like a presence and more of a statement going on. Okay. Okay, beautiful. It's looking really nice. I like this a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pop my Veronica. So your Veronica is kind of that beautiful, has like a nice little, I don't know how I would describe that, but a little arm, I guess. So I'm gonna do probably 2 on this side of my design like this, and then I'll probably create some balance by doing 1 a little bit lower on the opposite side. So usually for my usually for my Veronica, I will begin by pulling away any leaves off the stem. You may have 2 smaller little guys that are peeking out below your stem, but I think those are cute, so I'm gonna leave them on. And then I'm just cleaning up all 3 of my stems. So 1 and 2 I'm gonna do over here, kind of like almost like little antennae coming out on this side. So I'm having it even go a little bit beyond my delphinium. So I want this to be really visible. So I'm gonna have it even a little bit beyond my delphinium. And then my next one I'm gonna kind of have peeking out over here. I'm really filling out. So just be patient as you're kind of trying to get your stems in. And then my last one I'm going to do over on this side to create some balance a little bit lower. So I have 2 up here, and then 1 I'm gonna just kind of pop in over here. And I'm even doing mine in the back a little bit to give the back a little bit more interest, because right now it's just like a big, I put it right here. Just like a lot of delph back here. So I'm just giving a little texture. Okay, so now we have, oh, these are so pretty. What are we called? These are the cappuccino. So your cappuccino spray roses doesn't actually necessarily speak to the color itself. It's more of that like tiger pattern to the petals. So a few different colors that we will see, but these are just so striking to look at. So I absolutely love these. I'm gonna find a focal point, probably like right up here to put these, and I'll probably do 1 up here and then my other one kind of over in this area here. So nice to have them in a focal place where you're going to be able to enjoy and see them, and then also creating some balance by kind of spreading them from at different height variations. So this first ranunculus, just holding it up back here, giving it a nice cut, and then I'm going to snuggle this guy in, and you don't have to. You could put him in a little bit deeper. You could leave him kind of a little bit farther out of the design. That's totally you as the designer preference. I'm going to turn so I can see what I'm doing. But ranunculus are one of those flowers that look pretty kind of drifting out. So you could kind of have it leaving a little bit farther out like I did, or you can have it tucked in a little bit tighter. So for my second one, I mentioned before that I'm gonna kind of have it coming out over here. And I think this one, I'm even gonna have it really drifting kind of far out of my base. So he's really hanging out over here. Let me turn so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And then my last and favorite flower is clematis. So this guy, it's probably gonna have a nice kind of, so it vines. So you'll notice that it has these big, beautiful leaves. It's kind of stretching out, trying to get its next bloom created. So I will usually leave on our top 2 leaves and then pull away anything else that's below that. And you may have little buds here too, which I think look fantastic alongside. So I have a lot of kind of focal stuff spraying out on this side. So I'm gonna have these a little bit more airy out, drifting outside of my design on the opposite side. So I'm having them drift up pretty high out of my design, right about so. And then popping this guy in here. See if I can, there we go. So creeping out up top. I think it would be beautiful to have a second one kind of spraying out on this side as well. I also think you could do one kind of up front like this, peeking out over here. And I'm just gonna take a look at my arrangement from the front, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do the second option, and I'll pop mine in and then show you guys where I put it. Okay, so I have one on this side, and then my second one I had kind of countering that lower on this side, peeking out. And that's it. I mean, if you have, for some reason, gaps where maybe you want to put that last Delphinium, by all means do so. I felt like we had so much product today that I could really get away without using that last bloom. And I think you can spread that and maybe have like a little petite arrangement that would complement this bigger guy, but totally up to you. You can absolutely pop him into this arrangement as well, but I think we had plenty. They're so big, you can really get a lot of love out of just one single flower. And then you can tweak as you see fit. But yeah, this looks really beautiful. I think we do have kind of more of a front going on this side, but honestly, the back of this arrangement is really pretty too. So I think it looks nice from all angles. Thank you so much for joining us for class today. We have so many classes up on our website that will take us through the rest of the summer, and then eventually we will get our fall classes up there. This has been so fun for us and been a great way to allow more of you guys to take classes. So we've always had a nice workshop following, but this has really enabled us to kind of expand a little bit and give more people an opportunity to take class with us. So if you enjoyed class today, I would highly recommend checking out our website and seeing what classes we have planned moving forward. I know that there is, I think in May or early June, a peonies workshop. There are classes around the holidays. So there's like a 4th of July workshop if you're having a barbecue or you're going to a barbecue and you want to bring flowers. Lots of different options up there. So definitely peruse, see what it is that you're interested in, and join us in class again soon. We will see you soon.